my mouth, the meditation of all our hearts, and every action of all our lives be always acceptable to you, Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Has anybody ever eaten at the Daniel Boone Inn in Boone? Yeah, a few hands up. Well, lots of other restaurants are similar. I mean, the food is good, the atmosphere is a lot of fun, the price is reasonable, and I can't eat there anymore. See, like other places, the Daniel Boone Inn serves the food family style, they call it. You sit down and out comes these carts full of food. There's carts laden with fried chicken and mashed potatoes, and they probably have some vegetables, but I don't remember those. But then comes the dessert cart, and it's all you can eat. Well, one time I was seated there, really looking forward to the meal, and I see these carts coming out of the kitchen, just like I say, laden with food, and it's so wonderful. But then I noticed at the same time there were other carts going back to the kitchen, overloaded with food that had never been touched. All this food that had never been touched that was going in the dumpster. And now I don't know there was enough food there to feed every homeless person in Boone, but it sure felt that way. Similar thing happens in school cafeterias. And then there's a woman I know who actually sometimes has stood beside the trash can in the school cafeteria and rescues unused fruit, untouched fruit, so she can hand them out after the school to the kids who really want it. Now please know, please hear this. It's not the kids who use the backpack buddies who throw food away. Know that for many of those kids, that backpack is the only food that they'll get on the weekends. They typically don't waste food, but lots of food is wasted. And I suspect you've probably decided that this sermon is about how God has provided us with all the food needed and we just don't share it. And that's absolutely true. But that's not how I'm using it. Rather, I'm using that illustration as a metaphor. And it's a metaphor for organizations that have wonderful, abundant offerings that many people want. They desire it with all their heart, and they need it. But it's not made available. This is a metaphor for churches. A metaphor for the love of God, which people understand, but maybe don't share. At this point, like many of my sermons, I will say to you, if I'm not speaking to you even a little bit, feel free to doze off. That's okay. But I suspect, deep down inside, this is true of all of us. Now, as many of you know, my passion is mentoring churches that are seeking to reach out to people who want to know God better. And know that I feel comfortable standing before you and saying these things because our Father has so much to offer, and we are willing to share. So what I'm hoping to do is to challenge ourselves about whether or not we are doing all we can do. Now, this metaphor, like many of them, falls apart pretty quickly if you take it too far, but the point is the abundance we have while other people are missing out. Now, I know that some of you are thinking, nice, but no one's interested in going to church anymore, especially young people. Well, that's just not true. Ask me later on, and I can give you the details and defend these statistics, but there's over 100,000 people who live within just a few miles of where we're standing. What you may not know is that these same surveys that the media headlines about people not wanting a church also show that virtually all of those 100,000 people believe in a higher power, and something like 1/3 would like a deeper spiritual experience. So to keep numbers simple, let's say 30,000 people live within a few miles of where we are sitting and want a deeper spiritual life. Now, I suspect some of you are thinking, well, that's okay, you know, that's probably true, but what they want is the rock band and the movie screens. And it's true for some people. And although that's not my choice, I'm thankful that our gracious God makes that option available to people for whom that is a way to grow closer to God. And just to be really pessimistic, for the sake of discussion, let's say that 2/3 of the people I said were looking for a deeper spiritual experience are interested in the rock bands and the movie screens. Anybody done the arithmetic yet? That would mean something around 10,000 people live within a few miles of us and would be interested in what we offer if they knew about it. Now, we're not going to interest, or actually more accurately, we're not going to be able to minister to 10,000 people. In fact, those numbers scare me. But if just 1% of those people find our Father, that would more than double the number of people who come here. Now, I want to stress that's not the goal. Attendance is not the goal. Helping people know God's love is the goal. But those numbers give us some perspective. Now, I know the metaphor has fallen apart, but the connection is between how lots of people need food and the food is available, and lots of people needing and wanting the spiritual life that is available. Well, it's worth asking, what do we have? What does our Father have to share? First, foremost, the only thing that really matters is pathways to know God's love. Ultimately, that's what all of us and all of them are seeking. Ultimately, that's what thousands of people would be interested in hearing about. Now, obviously, I can't mention everything and every person here at Our Father. So many of you are active in so many ways, and so much is going on. But let me just mention a few. Because the most effective way to help people know God's love is not by words, but by actions. And Our Father people do that well. I want to tell you that there's Sundays when we're sitting over there and I find my heart simultaneously bursting with joy and breaking with sorrow. Bursting with joy for the fact that we are being blessed by this community, and breaking with sorrow for the people who are suffering because they're not here or they don't know about it. The most important offering to ourselves and to other people, of course, is the wonderful worship that's offered every Sunday. Great people, meaningful sermons, fantastic music, all blend together to worship God. In fact, I don't know, I've probably told a few this story of Shirley and my first Sunday here. I had gotten to know Pastor Judy when I was doing some other things, and we basically dropped in to say thank you to her. And we were sitting over there, and after just a few minutes of the music, there's this jab in my side, and Shirley says, "We're staying." And the bruise still hurts, so if you have any questions, that really did happen. So imagine how many people who are not here who would be encouraged by Pastor Jesse's sermons, loved by the people music and be inspired by it. How many people are uncertain about God's love, but would experience it here and become certain of it? What else? Well, I've been in and worked with lots of churches. I've never seen a church with youth as involved and active as they are here. And yes, again, Myrtle deserves a lot of the credit, but so do the youth, the other leaders, the parents, and the congregation, who's never hesitated to support them. And younger kids, I love the little ones. In fact, sometimes I have to confess when one of the little ones is near me and they're misbehaving, it's because this big kid is playing with them. And for that, no, I'm not sorry. I know few places who welcome young kids as authentically as our Father. And let me promise you something. If you welcome the young child, you have involved the parent and the grandparents. Of course, again, we've all heard the stories how young adults are particularly uninterested in church. Maybe they call themselves spiritual but not religious. Well, that's just wrong again. If you take the time to actually dig into these surveys, you find a very different answer. Now, it's true of many young adults, but lots of research has shown that many young adults are looking for a spiritual community just like this one. What they want is authenticity, and they want to be respected. Not just tolerated as the older folks run things, but respected and involved. And I can confidently tell a young adult that they will find that here. You've been waiting for me to mention a couple of our most important assets, Pastor Jesse and Myrtle. And I'll let Pastor Jesse know he got the applause too. Seriously though, seriously, don't you know many people whose lives would be better if they knew Myrtle and Pastor Jesse? If they had a chance to interact with them as well as everyone else? Like a restaurant that has abundant food and ignores the hungry around them. There are lots of hungry people around us. They're hungry for God's love, hungry for a spiritual community in which they can grow in God's love. Now, I'm not suggesting any particular plan of action, just challenging us. Definitely I'm included in that. But as usual, Myrtle has picked the perfect song to follow the sermon. I love to tell the story. It summarizes all this well, except as I was thinking about it, I realized that not everyone can honestly say that they frequently tell the story of Jesus, God's love, or our Father. So what I'm going to do is offer to you the option of singing this as a proclamation, or singing it as a prayer that God grants you the right words and the obvious opportunities to tell the story, and maybe most of all, that God nudge you into actually doing that. That said, though, be warned. Be warned. God has a habit of answering this prayer. As God said to Jeremiah, "Do not say I'm only a child, for you shall go to all to whom I send you. Now I have put my words in your mouth." Please stand as you read.